Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another video. Today we'll be talking about the SCP Foundation, a fictional... Is that what you guys want me to say? Fictional? A fictional organization dedicated to securing, containing, and protecting against the most volatile and dangerous creatures, phenomena, events, and things in the universe. I've done a whole video on the SCP Foundation before. If you're unfamiliar with the universe, I'll link that above. But the interesting thing about SCP articles, which each deal with a specific SCP file, is that you learn a lot from reading between the lines. Usually the article will have a description of the thing and its effects, but often there are other entries, like journal logs or experiment findings, and often you learn a lot not only from the raw data presented, but also in how that information is presented. Do we start to see some weird things happening to the researchers who are writing the entries? Do we start to see a bit of the SCP's effects creep in to the article? So today we'll be looking at SCP-2790, which is a really good example of this sort of containment breach. So, SCP-2790 is some sort of really cute squid, or at least that's how it presents. It's contained within a secure aquarium, and here are the special containment procedures, and you guys will already start to see how things are getting a little bit weird. SCP-2790 is contained in a Class 2 deep-water aquatic containment tank in Site-54, where it cannot be touched. So that makes sense. But then we get, as of this time, personnel are freely invited to splash around and play with him. SCP-2790 should not be touched and must always be hand-fed. All forms of physical contact with 2790 are allowed and encouraged except touching. So that's just the first bit of the containment procedure, and we can see immediately a whole bunch of contradictions. 2790 isn't supposed to be touched, but the containment procedures, which are obviously made by people not of sound mind or which have been edited, are requiring and encouraging touching, including the fact that personnel are supposed to splash around and play with 2790, and that they must always hand feed the creature. He loves treats. Hug him before and after playtime. Personnel should be coerced into playing with him. They must poke him and prod him and hug him and squeeze him and rub him and play with him. So it's almost like a bit of manic energy coming through here as well. So we're seeing the warring of the effects that 2790 is clearly having on SCP personnel and the containment procedures that are obviously not being properly followed. It's a little more though than just touching. Despite being a seemingly ordinary male Atlantic cranch squid, the effects of 2790 are to portray it as being extraordinarily cute and innocent. The description of the being is as endearing, snuggly, sociable, easygoing, and enjoying playing games. There's also a focus on how it should not ever be lonely, and that's where the touching comes in that we discussed earlier. This seems to not only have the effect of making people want to touch SCP-2790, but just in generally to be in contact with its skin. And we see in some of the addendums that we'll discuss in a moment that personnel become infatuated with the idea of touching the thing's skin. This isn't innocent though. This isn't just SCP wanting to be loved. This seems to be a method for 2790's propagation. So if we look at the addendums, which are sort of like a summary, in this case of various projects and research related to the being, we can see the researchers around 2790 gradually becoming more and more addicted and obsessed with the squid to, frankly, a disturbing conclusion. So it started off with just touching and caressing of 2790, but once people begin to touch that skin, as I mentioned, it seems like they get obsessed with it. Early on, this leads to the proposal to graft skin from the creature onto all personnel. Addendum 2790-3 says, and I quote, 117 personnel were selected to test the initial grafts by replacing the uglier, callous skin on their hands with 2790's perfect, supple skin. All of this, of course, made the squid even happier, and we can see that the Foundation began doing things like cloning the skin so they could have an endless supply. While this is happening, SCP-2790 is also downplaying the failures and the disturbing progression of the experiments, saying, for example, that only 87% of test subjects suffered complication from the procedures, with relatively minor effects, like, for example, tissue necrosis. and that the breach rate has decreased from 0 breaches a day to 0 breaches a day. Again, all hiding that this is speeding up and just getting worse. Eventually, all personnel on SCP Site-54 have crafted at least some skin to their hands, and as of the last update, there was progress being made to, and I quote, totally replace the rough, monstrous skin of all personnel with 2790's gorgeous skin. So as I said, this is clearly some sort of method of propagation, and we also get in the special containment procedures that SCP-2790 should be periodically transferred to other sites as part of a pilot program to improve general Foundation morale. So unfortunately, we don't get much more information than that, but here's what I assume is happening. The true nature of SCP-2790 is probably some sort of fluid or skin or strange material. It's simply coalesced into this squid form, but is further spreading as a sort of like psychic plague by grafting itself onto individuals, grafting itself with their will, although their will being altered by some powers which we'll discuss in a moment. So 2790 is what the SCP Foundation calls a Cognito Hazard. It has the potential to seriously affect the minds of those researching it. In this case, clearly the effect manifests in an uncontrollable desire to touch SCP-2790 and also in the documentation itself. The thing uses its psychic powers in whatever form they exist to alter the documentation to make the thing seem cute and to just kind of further its spread. Now, it's unclear to me how the initial spread starts, but I would guess that this first touch is probably needed, because we do see in the containment protocols, which do make it through unedited, that not touching the thing is really the key. On that note too, I want to talk about memetics. Some people have claimed that this is a memetic-based SCP. Memetic SCPs have strange effects which are passed on through the understanding or processing of certain information. At least that's how I would explain it. Think about what a meme is. For example, if you know what long cat is, and me saying those words triggers an image within your head, that's like a memetic response. If you didn't know what long cat was, but you do now after this video, then I've sort of passed it on to you. And there's a whole bunch of associated ideas and images that come along with that. Now, I don't think that's what's happening here. The message isn't being spread through the words itself within the SCP-2790 documents. I don't think so anyway, though it is possible that when you read what's going on that there is an unstoppable compulsion to touch the thing. Rather, I think it's some sort of psychic effect that people's minds are being afflicted and then we're seeing the results of that in the document. But it's not the cause, if that makes any sense. I could be wrong, and it could actually be that people feel so inclined to touch the thing because they read the words which describe how cute it is, but that's certainly up for debate. Either way, the SCP Foundation has gone ahead and isolated Site-54 to stop the spread of 2790, but I do wonder what's going on with anybody left in there, how their sort of infection has progressed, whether 2790 has a new form, whether he's gained more powerful, but as I said, unfortunately, that's all we have for now. Maybe at the end the researchers replace all of them with the insides of 2790. Simply replacing the skin isn't enough, and that is kind of interesting because if you think about a squid, and especially the one we're talking about in today's video, the Atlantic cranch squid, they do appear to be, and I'm not saying that this is how they actually are biologically, simply skin with nothing inside of them. Now obviously that's not the actual case, but it's interesting to think about how a potential entity could make this form and what the meaning of it being a squid actually is. Or maybe it's just the cute eyes. I don't know. On that note, one last thing I do want to mention is when reading this, it sort of reminded me of the compulsion that people get when they see something really cute like a puppy or a baby to just squeeze it, which I think is called cute aggression. So maybe it is playing on some sort of memetic aspect there, but I don't know. Again, let me know all of your guys' thoughts down in the comments. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know which SCP you'd like me to cover next, especially one that hasn't been covered already on YouTube. But that's all I have for you guys today. Until next time, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.